he spoke volumes without saying a word. He delivered messages without writing a word. He informed an entire city without requiring anyone to read a word. He was an artist, comedian, and activist during a time when America needed to see, laugh, and change. With a pencil in his hand, an idea in his head, and a desire for justice in his heart, he took down the most potent corruption plaguing his city. As a leading political cartoonist of the Gilded Age, Thomas Nast was not only incredibly influential, but seriously funny. Known as the father of the American cartoon, Thomas Nast transformed American society during the late 19th century by spreading information through political cartoons. Born in September of 1840 in Landau, Germany, Thomas Nast came to New York at the age of 6. Nast began drawing when he was just 15 years old. New York was the center of media publication, providing 30% of America's printing and publishing. Nast's drawings first made an appearance in Leslie's Illustrated newspaper, illustrating topics such as police brutality. From the start, his illustrations were already taking an objective stand against corruption in New York City. In 1862, Nast began drawing for Harper's Weekly and continued to do so for 25 years. Of the 2,000 cartoons he created for the magazine, his most notable centered on Boss Tweed, a politician in New York City and leader of the notoriously corrupt political machine Tammany Hall. Released in Harper's Weekly from 1868 to 1873, Nast's cartoons single-handedly exposed Tammany Hall's corruption. To understand Nast's reasoning behind his relentless attacks against Tweed and Tammany Hall, it is helpful to look at three major factors which became the sources of Nast's disdain: his Republican beliefs, his disapproval of the Catholic Church and Irish immigrants, and the corruption of the Tweed Ring.
He came out of a world in which everyone disapproved of someone like Boss Tweed because they thought that what Tammany Hall and political machines in general represented was political decision-making that had been diverted from the right people.
The beginning of Nast's cartooning career coincided with the dawn of the Civil War. Although they were romantic-style drawings and not political satire, Nast's cartoons still effectively illustrated the anti-war and anti-slavery sentiments of the Union. What words failed to express, monochromatic cartoons captured perfectly. His work ultimately led Ulysses S. Grant to believe that Thomas Nast did as much as any one man to preserve the Union and bring the war to an end. After the war, Nast's cartoons covered Reconstruction, aligning with radical Republicans and adopting beliefs that would soon be challenged by Tammany Hall's democratic views. Feeling that the principles of freedom and equality by which he abided by were under threat, Nast was compelled to lead his crusade against the political machine. Nast's second reason for opposing Tammany Hall can be viewed as less than noble. During the Gilded Age, Tammany Hall's rise in political popularity came from its efforts to help Irish immigrants. Out of Ireland's 8 million population, 2 million fled to New York to escape the potato famine, seeking refuge. Instead, Americans rebuked them for their inarticulate English and unskilled labor, Tammany Hall being the exception.
The basic mode of operation for a political machine like Tammany Hall was to trade various kinds of favors for political support.
It saw the 2 million immigrants as potential voters and strategically gave immigrants food, housing, and citizenship in order to win their votes at the polls. It was this association of Tammany with Catholic Irish immigrants that Nast disapproved of. To him, the Catholic Church represented anti-modernism and fanaticism. He also believed that Irish immigrants were more loyal to the Vatican rather than the United States. As a result, Nast saw the Catholic Irish as a centrifugal force threatening the survival of the nation, and his depictions of them never strayed far from stereotypes, creating discriminatory and offensive cartoons. Ultimately, Nast's anti-Irish and anti-Catholic sentiments gave him another reason to oppose Tammany Hall. Lastly, Tammany Hall's intense corruption cannot be overlooked. Abiding to patronage, candidates were elected into political office because they were favored by the powerful at Tammany, not because they were qualified. Led by Boss Tweed, several members of Tammany participated in extreme graft. In the end, the Tweed Ring, as they were known, robbed up today's equivalent of $2.4 billion from New York City. To cover up their fraudulent deeds, Tammany ensured that only pro-Tammany judges heard cases. Coupled with his personal beliefs, such corruption led Nast to become one of the Tweed Ring's most vocal and effective critics. Since many Irish immigrants were illiterate, Nast cartoons reached them in a way written text couldn't. They were such a threat that Tweed supposedly exclaimed, "My constituents don't know how to read, but they can't help seeing them damned pictures." From 1868 to 1873, Nast built a strong argument against Tammany Hall by highlighting its faults. Thomas Nast's cartoon, The Brain, explicitly illustrates Tweed's priorities, letting people know what he really cared about. Other cartoons, such as the Tammany Tiger, demonstrate Tammany's detrimental effects on society. In this cartoon, the tiger represents Tammany Hall and pounces on top of a woman who represents the Republic. In the background, Nast's personification of justice lies on the ground, her scales broken. The cartoon alludes to the Roman Empire, during which Christians were attacked by beasts for show. In the audience, Tweed observes from the seat of the Roman emperor. Of these details, the tiger delivers the cartoon's main message by representing Tammany Hall with the tiger and not just the Tweed Ring specifically. Nast suggests that several of the machine's aspects beside its corruption erode New York society. Nast's Under the Thumb cartoon conveys a similar message. While the thumb of Tammany smothers New York, New Jersey is free from such suppression. Once again, Nast's decision to not cite one specific part of Tammany Hall as the sole cause of New York's suffering allows him to suggest that the problem of Tammany stems from several different roots. Nast's work from 1868 to 1873 greatly shaped the public's view of Boss Tweed and Tammany Hall. The election of 1871 saw many Tammany candidates voted out of office. Tweed himself was voted into the state senate but was soon arrested. He escaped to Spain, but due to the striking accuracy of Nast's caricatures, was recognized and returned. After confessing his crimes in court, he spent the rest of his life in jail. The wordlessness of Nast's protests was what made it effective, as 20% of the population was illiterate. The fact that Tammany's victims comprised much of that 20% only heightens the importance of Nast's cartoons, as they alone were able to enlighten an entire community. His messages were universally understood, regardless of literacy. Nast's career as one of America's most outspoken cartoonists created a legacy that can be felt today. The Overseas Press Club Thomas Nast Award honors him and recognizes the world's most influential cartoonists. Nast is credited for giving the Republican and Democratic parties their respective mascots, the elephant and the donkey, as well as creating the modern-day image of Santa Claus. But most importantly, his cartoons serve to blaze a new path for the place of political cartoons in the world of media and politics.
He pioneered an approach to cartooning which asserted a place for political cartooning as an essential component of American satirical culture.
In a world where print media dominated, Nast's wordless drawing stood out as a novel way to inform the public that proved extremely effective.
I would look at the front pages and they were like impenetrable. They had so much information, all these different names and everything on it. And I thought, I'm never going to figure this out. But then I'd go to the cartoons, and the cartoons would be able to explain to me what was it all about.
As a result of Nast's cartoons, circulation of Harper's Weekly tripled in size from 100,000 to 300,000 papers annually. The magazine The Nation summarizes Nast's legacy best. Nast lifted political cartoons to a pitch of excellence never before attained in this country, and has secured for them an influence on opinion such as they never came near having in any country. With nothing but a pencil and willpower, Thomas Nast revolutionized the field of political cartooning and ended New York's most corrupt political machine.
I'd like to say that we're kind of a small speck in a sandstorm, a single grain of sand in a sandstorm. Where a sandstorm, when it goes against a mountain, it will wear it down over time. And maybe that one speck doesn't seem important, but when that one speck of sand gets into the eye of your intended target, it will bother them dramatically. So to me, a political cartoon is part of a whole movement of change in society that can have small impact and severe impact, but it's part of a wave that helps make things hopefully go in the right direction.